Today's Daf Yomi is Gittin Samach Beis, Gittin 62. So today's Daf Yomi, we're going to start on Samach Beis, Amud Aleph, 3 lines from the top, where the Gemara tells us, Hayed Rabbi Yossi ben Meshulam Mishum Rabbi Yochanan. Yossi ben Meshulam gave the testimony in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, his brother, Achiv Shama Mishum Rabbi Lazar ben Chasma. So this is the testimony that he had heard. Ein osin chalas amaretz b'tahara. So let's say you have an amaretz who says, "Here is my challah dough. I want you to knead it in your state of ritual purity, and I want you to then have it ready so it's challah, so I can give it to the kohen." You're not allowed to do that. The reason why you can't do that, Rashi says, is we're talking about an amaretz who says to the person who's the professional kneader of the dough, says, take some challah from my dough, which is the gift to the kohen, and do it in a state of ritual purity. You can't listen to him because it's already become tamei. We assume that anything that the amaretz is touching is tamei. And so therefore, when the kohen is going to come and take this from the kneader, he's going to say, oh, he's a chaver, and all thing hits tahora. So you can't do that. Aval osin isav hulov b'tahara, but if the amaretz gives to the kohen, gives to the kneader a block of dough, and he says, make this in a state of ritual purity, that he can do. Osin isas hulov b'tahara, v'noto imenek dechala, u'meniach b'kfisha u'barachusa. But what he can do is, he could start the dough in the state of ritual purity, and then he could put it in these utensils that they don't typically put dough in, and that cannot contract tuma. So that he's able to do. And then when the amaretz comes to take his dough back, and now he has the flour and the water mixed into dough, then the amaretz could take both of them together. She doesn't have to be concerned. So in the latter case, in the first case, the amaretz, it seems, was giving him already the dough that was partially made, so therefore became tamei. But in the latter case, it was not made at all, so therefore the amaretz never touched it, and so therefore we don't have to be concerned that the amaretz is going to take the dough which the chaver made and to make it tamei, because he's putting it in a separate utensil, so the amaretz knows to stay away from. So to ein osin trumas zeisav b'tahara. Let's say the amaretz gives him his olives, and he says, this is the truma that's supposed to go for the kohen, turn it into olive oil. That you're not allowed to do for the amaretz, because it's the same concern that it's already become tamei, because the process already started. But you can make these olives from the outset in a state of ritual purity, and take some truma from it, and place it in the utensils of the chaver. When the amaretz comes to take it, and to give one to the kohen who's a chaver and one for himself. No to and the amaretz could take the two separate utensils. We don't have to be concerned. So why are we being so lenient in this case that we're allowing the amaretz to take the challah and the truma? We don't have to be concerned he's going to make it tamei. Time of my Rabbi Yochanan explains, Mishum kidei chayav degabel, Mishum kidei chayav debadel. We want the person who's the professional kneader and the professional olive man, we want them to be able to make a living. And we need this halacha to be taught in both cases. Diyash meaning gabel, because if we just learn the case of the professional kneader, we would say mishum lo nafesh agrei, because the kneader doesn't make a lot of money, and so therefore we have to be lenient for him. But the olive guy, he makes a lot of money. The nafesh agrei, he makes a lot of money. Aim alone, maybe we don't have to be concerned in this case. Diyash meaning badad, but if we just said the case of the olive man, he only happens in once a year. That's why we're going to allow it. I mean, just during the olive season, avogabo, but the kneader, the shliach, he's every day. The shliach low. So maybe we're not going to be lenient for him because this is something he does every single day. So therefore, it's tzricha. We need it to be taught in both cases. So now the Gemara says, Amar Mar no imana k'dechal menicha b'kfisha u'ba'chusa. And the amaretz could take the dough, the challah, and the chaver, the kneader, put the challah in one mixture, in one bag, and which is not able to contract tuma. And then he put the other dough in the bag for the amaretz. And then we don't have to be concerned that the amaretz is going to make it tamei. But why not, ask Gemara? Why not? Why aren't we concerned that the Amaretz is going to touch the dough and make it tamei? Why aren't we concerned? So the Gemara explains, we're not concerned. Because we say to him, we warn him, if you touch this, you're going to uproot its status, and it's no longer going to be considered like it was tithed. And now it's going, the food you took is going to have returned and is now like it was untithed. It was like tevel. And he's not going to want to do that because the Rashi explains that Amaretz is not suspected to eat the food that's tevel because that's a punishment of death from heaven. So therefore we give him this warning. There's a dispute amongst the commentaries. Does it really become tevel, which is what the Chasam Sofer says? Or do we say, no, we're just trying to trick him not to touch it? So the Gemara then goes on and says, well, maybe he doesn't care. So the Gemara says, no, clearly he wants to take the tevel off, get rid of its status as tevel. That's why he comes to the professional kneader. You think he's not going to care? Of course he'll care. So we learned that he takes the truma from the olives and he puts it in the utensil, makes it olive oil, and he gives it in his own utensil. The Amaretz takes the truma to give to the Kohen, and he takes his olive oil to take for himself. We don't have to be concerned that he's going to make the olive oil tamei. So the Gemara asks the question, why not? Why aren't we concerned that he's going to touch the olive oil? So the Gemara says, it makes sense in the case of the dough, the challah. There we said he's not going to make a tamei. Why? It makes sense over there. Islay hekera, because there was a different utensil, so he knows not to touch it. How is he going to know here not to touch it? So the Gemara says, no, he placed him in these types of utensils. The chaver placed him in these types of utensils that are either earthenware or stone or golalim. They used to make some utensils out of manure. They're not able to contract tumah. And so therefore, if the Amaretz touched the utensil, it doesn't become tamei. And so therefore, he's not going to touch the dough because he's not going to touch the dough because it's in a separate utensil. And he's not going to touch the olives because even if he touched the utensil, it's in a utensil that can't become tamei. So therefore, the Amaretz doesn't make the utensil tamei by carrying the utensil. He makes the utensil, but he makes the food tamei by touching the food. So the Gemara says, well, why does it have to be the chaver's utensil? If it's a utensil that can become tamei, I feel the Amaretz nami. Even if it's the Amaretz's utensil, it can become tamei. Gemara says, you know what? Inachanami, you're correct. Achinami ka'amar bekelim shel Amaretz. No, we're talking about the utensils of an Amaretz, which a chaver is allowed to use, i.e., those types of utensils which cannot become tamei. So now the Gemara, the Mishnah had said that you are machzikin the akom b'shvius. You're allowed to strengthen the hands of the idolater in the sabbatical year. Gemara says, machzikin, how can you strengthen the hands of the idolater? We say explicitly, you're not allowed to plow with idolater and to help him plow his field in the sabbatical year because you're not allowed to work the land. So what does it mean? And also, we continue with the statement of Rav, the inkofun shalom and you're not allowed to double the greeting to the idolater. So, but we see from here, you're not allowed to plow with the idolater in the sabbatical year. So why do we say that you're allowed to do it? And the Gemara says, no, it's tzricha ba'alma. No, we're saying you're allowed to say to him, good job, echsuke, give him strength. That's what you're allowed to do. Kihad the Rabbi Yehuda Amar lo achzuke. When Rabbi Yehuda used to see an idolater working on the land, he would say, good job. Rav Sheshes Amru ashrasa. He would say, great job. And he would give them a lashon of chizuk, meaning to say, you're doing great. Keep up the great work. To me, it's very moving. You imagine these great rabbis, Rabbi Yehuda and Rav Sheshes, they see these idolaters working in the field and they say, good job, keep up the great work, even though it's a sabbatical year. Very powerful image. Rav Chisda Maktiv Yavu Shalma. Rav Chisda would run out and greet them with peace. Rav Kahana Amar Shalma Amar. Rav Kahana would say to them, peace upon the master. And Rashi says his intent was to say, who's our master? God. He wasn't praising the idolaters, he was praising God. So the Gemara says, Visholam Mishloman, and you're allowed to ask about their welfare. So the Gemara says, Hashech Suke Machsakino, you're allowed to say, good job, Sholem Mishloman Mibaye. Do we have to say that you're allowed to ask about their welfare? So I'm Rav Yeina, Lo Nitzrocha Lo Yom Edam. No, even on the day of their festivals, even on the days of their festivals, and we don't have to be concerned that maybe he's going to go now and praise his God because the Jew asked about his welfare. So the Gemara says, the Tanya, we're going to the Brayso, so you're not allowed to go into the idolater's house on the day of his festival and praise and ask about his welfare, because now maybe he's going to praise his God as a result of it. But Matzo Bashuk, if you find him in the market, no single Basafa Rafa, Vakoge Rosh, you find him in the marketplace, you can give him greetings with a small lip or the lowered head, and in a muted manner. Ravuna Rav Chisda Yasve. One time the Gemara says Ravuna and Rav Chisda were sitting down, and this has to do with the topic of giving Sheila Shalom, of greeting a person. Now we already had similar Gemara twice with this person, Geniva, who was a controversial figure. So Cholav Azil Geniva. So Geniva walked by. We had this twice in our Gemara already. A similar circumstance, but it's not the exact same story. So Amar Echad Chaver Nekum Mikmei Debar Oryanhu. Should we get up in front of him? Because Geniva knows a lot of Torah. Amar Lo. So he says to him, Umikmei Palga Nekum. Yeah, he knows a lot of Torah, but he causes a lot of fights. So maybe we shouldn't get up for him. Maybe we're concerned that he was a Moser, that he was handing over people to the corrupt authorities. So the Gemara says, in the meantime, Geniva walked past them. So Geniva says, peace upon you kings, peace upon you kings. So they were shocked. They said, why do you assume that rabbis are called kings? So they said, because they said the house of kings will reign. And what's our source for the idea that you say peace upon you kings? Because it was a statement, how do we know that we double our greeting when we speak to the king? Because it says Veruach Lavsha Es Amasi. This is with us Amasai Rosh Hashalishim Lecha David V'imcha Ben Yishai Shalom Shalom Lecha. So we see from here that he says Shalom Shalom Lecha. So that in that verse he gave him a double greeting to David. So they liked what Geniva was saying, even though Geniva was a very problematic person. They liked what he's saying, so they invited him to eat with them. So they said, should we taste something? So Rav Yehuda said in the name of Rav that you're not allowed to eat something. A person can't eat something until he first gives food to his animal. As it says, so basically, first you have to give the food to your animals, and only then can you eat. So Geniva taught them another halacha that he can't eat. Now, as I'm saying over this Gemara, I looked over at Rashi and reminded myself that Rashi says, why was Geniva called a Palga? Because he was harassing Mar Ukva, who was the Av Bezdin. That's the Gemara in Daf Zayin Amud Aleph. I had said that Geniva was maybe a Moser, that he was handing people over to the authorities, but that was, now I'm remembering, that was the next Gemara after that on Zayin Amud Aleph. It dealt with the person who was a Moser, and that was the next case. But Geniva was just the person who harassed the Bezin, and he was causing fights. So he wasn't a Moser. So Hadron Alach Hanizakin, we've completed this beautiful chapter of Hanizakin, and we pray for the time where the stories about the Churban. Now we're in this Masechta are turned from stories of sadness into stories where we recount the stories in front of the rebuilt Beis Hamikdash. And now we're up to the next chapter, which is HaOmer. So this has to do with matters of shlichus, of agency. So appointing an agent to accept something on your behalf. So the Mishnah begins with on the top, the 6th chapter. Actually, in the Gemara, it's the 6th chapter. It's a dispute about whether or not it is the 6th chapter. Some have differences of opinion. A person who says, "Haomer es gabel get zel ishti," the husband says to the agent, "I want you to receive this get on behalf of my wife." Oh, holach get zel ishti, or he says, "Take this get from my wife." Imratz alachs or yachsor. Now, husband can recant. Now, you have to remember a couple of basic principles. The husband can appoint an agent to bring something to his wife, to bring the get to his wife, but that agent cannot receive it on behalf of the wife because the rabbis are of the opinion that it's going to be considered not a merit for her to receive the get because she would prefer to be married, all things being equal. There's a question about what if it's a specific case where she says she wants to get divorced, but that's a separate matter. But as a general rule, the husband can appoint a person to bring the get to his wife. And under those circumstances, since she's not divorced until it comes into her possession, therefore he can recant. So if he says, "Bring this get to my wife," or "Bring this get," or his skaba, "Receive this get on behalf of my wife," he can't appoint an agent to receive the get on behalf of his wife. So therefore, if he wants to recant, he can because she's not yet received it. A woman who says, if the woman says to her agent, "Listen, I want you to receive this get," then once the get goes into the hands of her agent, she can't recant. Then once the get goes into the possession of her agent, then she's divorced. And so at that point, once the husband has given it to her, he can't change his mind because she's divorced at that point. If the husband says, but now we want to say, let's say the husband says, let's say the husband changes the status of the agent. The wife says, "I want you to receive this get on my behalf." But the husband says, "I don't want you to receive it on her behalf. Instead, I want you to take the get from me and be my agent and bring it to her." Then in Ratzalachs or Yachsar, then since he changed the status of the agent, at that point he can recant. And of course, the Gemara is going to discuss all these cases. Reshbag says, "Afal meres toli giti." Also, if she says not accept it, but take for the get on my behalf, that's also going to be considered a valid agent for acceptance. And if he wants to recant at that point, he can. So now the Gemara says, it's a technical point at the beginning. Amalei Rav Acha, Brei de Rav Avia Rav Ashi. So Rav Acha, the Brei de Rav Avia says to Rav Ashi, Taima Deroshi Visa Ihi Shliach Kabbalah. What's the reason why the husband can recant in the first case? Is because she didn't say, "This is also my agent to receive it." It's just his agent to bring it. But let's say she had said, let's say she had said, "This is my agent to receive it," and he says to his agent, "Bring this get to my wife." So then since even though he says, "Bring this get to my wife," and that's just an agent of halacha, but since she has also said, "Make this my agent to receive it," then he can't change his mind anymore because she's divorced the second it goes into her possession, her agent's possession. So there, then he can't recant. But we learn from here, this helps us establish how we rule in an earlier dispute, where if he says, "Shmamina holech kaskidami," that earlier we said, let's say he says, "Bring it," he just uses that language, that's an expression of accepted on this other person's behalf. And so therefore, since he's saying accepted on this other person's behalf, and she says, "I want you to receive it from me," then the agent is serving as both her agent and his agent, and he's saying, and the husband is saying, "Holech," that's like saying, "I want you to receive it on her behalf." So this maybe helps us answer that question. Where it says, no, it doesn't. No, maybe holech does not mean I want you to receive it on her behalf. And so therefore, if that's the case, what's the inference from here? Miskabel get leishti, it's trichalei. And the only reason why we say this expression of holech is to help us understand this case of where he says, receive the get on behalf of my wife. Why? Because you might have thought, because you might have said, well, since the husband cannot appoint his agent to be an agent to receive the get, therefore, afagav the mata gita yada will have a gita. I might have thought that since the husband cannot appoint an agent to receive the get, he can't appoint her to be her. He can't appoint this agent to be her agent to receive the get, and so therefore, he also didn't appoint this agent to actually be an agent of bringing it. He said this formulation of be the agent to receive it. Then I might have said afagav the mataliyate will have a gita. Then I might have said, well, then at that point, even though he brought the get to her, it's not a valid get because he only wanted her to be divorced through the acceptance of the agent. So therefore, I might have thought that this is not a valid get. So Kamash Mondo, what he was really saying is, he's really saying, receive it and bring it to her. And so therefore, once the get reaches her hand, then she'll be divorced. And so because the Mishnah tells us the case of hiskabel, it also has to write the case of holech. And the Mishnah is saying whether he says hiskabel or whether he says holech, his person has become an agent to carry the get, and she's going to be divorced only once it comes into her possession. So the Gemara still wants to know whether or not holech is kizechidami. And the Gemara says, let's bring a proof from the next line in the Mishnah where we stated as follows. Where the Mishnah says, Tanana, Isha Sha'amra, Hiskabali Giti, the woman says, receive my get, at that point, the husband can receive once it goes into the woman's possession. My love, doesn't this mean Loshna Kabbalah, Loshna Halacha? Doesn't it mean whether the husband says, accept this get on behalf of my wife, or whether he says, bring this get, then in both of those cases, she's going to be divorced immediately once he gets the get, because she has said accept it. And we see from here that holech is like sechidami. He's saying, give it to her. So the moment he gets it, she's going to be divorced, because he's saying receive it on her behalf. So the Gemara, because otherwise, why wouldn't he be able to go? Why wouldn't he be able to recant? He didn't give her the get on the condition that she should be divorced immediately. So the Gemara says, no, Kabbalah. No, it's referring to this phrase of the acceptance. So that's all it's referring to. So the Gemara again tries to prove that holach is kitzchidami from the last line of the Mishnah, that the Mishnah says, Tashma, lefikach, the next line, im amar lo abali, efshish et Kabbalah, ela holach v'tein. If the husband says, I don't want you to be the agent of acceptance, which is what my wife said you are, but I want you to be the agent of halacha, to carry it and bring it to her. Imratza lachzor yachzor. Then under those circumstances, he could recant. Taima, what's the reason why he could recant? Damar iavshi, because he specifically undid the agent of Kabbalah. Lo amar iavshi. But if he wouldn't have said that, he wouldn't be able to recant, because holech is kizchidami, and she said, I want to receive it. Shmamina holech kizchidami. So it doesn't improve that when he says holech, it's like he's saying accept it. The Gemara says, no, here in this case, maybe he doesn't say holech. Maybe we should read it as helech, meaning to say, carry this and give it to her. When he says helech, he's certainly agreeing with the words of the woman that go with her. He's saying to the agent, go with her just like she said. So therefore, it's not a proof about the expression of just carry this. What would be the answer? So now the Gemara says, almost like a side tangent, the Gemara says, let's first get some laws of agency and clarify them. Shita, it's obvious. It's obvious that a man can be an agent to carry the get for the husband, because we know that a husband can bring the get to his wife. So in general, it's obviously that the case that a man can be an agent to bring the get. And also, it's also obvious, Isha obvious shliach kabbalah. It's also obvious that a woman can be an agent to receive the get. Shekain Isha mekabelas gita mi'abala, because a woman can receive the get from her husband. So therefore, another woman could be her agent to receive it. Ishla kabbalah b'isha lo lachamai. But can the man be the woman's agent to receive the get? And can a woman be the man's agent to bring the get? What would be the law there? So the Gemara says, let's try and bring a proof from our Mishnah. Tashma ha'omer es kabel get zela ishti, or holach get zela ishti. Imratzal achsor yachsor. There he can go back. Ha'isha shamer es kabel igiti. Imratzal achsor lo yachsor. But if the woman says it to receive it at that point, then the woman has received the get at that point, so he can't go back. But my love, aren't we talking about the case of Bechad Shliach? Aren't we talking about where there's one agent involved? So therefore, we see that it could be the same agent. One who's good for Kabbalah could be good for Allah. And so therefore, the agent can be either a man or a woman. Mara says, no, we're talking about Shnei Shluchin. We're talking about two agents. That's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about. Not necessarily the case of one agent. Mara says, okay, Tashma, what about the next case? There, the husband is uprooting the wife's agency. There, it's clearly one agent. We see from here that one agent can be the agent to receive it and to bring it. So the Gemara says, okay, fine. We could answer half of our question there. Okay, we could answer this that maybe a man can certainly be an agent to receive it. Because the father can receive the get on behalf of his minor daughter. But my question for you is whether a woman can be an agent to bring the get. So Amar Amari Tashma, let's derive the answer to this from earlier Mishnayos in our tractate back on Chav Gimel and Beis, because we said Afanashim Sheina Nemanos Lamar Meis Bala Nemanos Lavias Agita. Those 5 women which we discussed in that Mishnah who are not believed to say that the man has died because we think that they have some axe to grind possibly with the wife of the husband. They are still believed to say to bring the get. So they're obviously the agents. And they're agents of carrying the get. And so we're going to believe them even though they're a woman. And Rav Ashi says, yes, I'm not arguing with you about that, but I can also prove it to you from the last line of that Mishnah. We say for Nami, going from the last line of the Mishnah, Shema Mina de Katani, Seifa, Isha Azma Maviaski, to Bobachi, Tzricha, Omar, Befanim Nachman, Fanim Nachman. Now, a woman could say that a woman herself is believed to carry the get. And there we're talking about as long as she says Befanim Nachman, Fanim Nachman, because she was appointed an agent by the husband. Otherwise, she would have been divorced right away. And so therefore, we established that Mishnah was talking about a case where she brings the get. She's the agent to bring the get. Shema Mina, we learn from here the fundamental principle that a woman can be the agent to carry the get or to receive the get. Okay, so this is the opening amud of this chapter, which is about agency, very technical chapter, and this will take us through this week, God willing. God willing, we'll study this chapter this week, and then next week we'll study the chapter of Misha also, the chapter of Misha also. Okay, everybody, have a great day.